Are you seeking fulfillment for your life? Do you want freedom from fear? That's why we're here. Welcome to Jesus 101, introducing you to the real Jesus. And now, here's your host, Elizabeth Talbot.
Welcome back to Jesus 101. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, actually, we are ending our series, Chosen, which was a topic of how to trust God's purpose for our life. And Mike Tucker's with us again. Thank you for being here.
Happy to be here.
Today, we're going to talk about a topic that is dear to both of us for different reasons. And I want to start by showing you a photo. This is a photo of when I was a little girl. Could you tell it's me?
Yeah, you look so sweet and innocent there, though. But what happened?
No, I don't. Actually, I look a little mischievous.
Is that okay? Yeah, okay.
And,
I see that look.
Yeah. So I'm with my dad. See, I was daddy's little girl.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, my dad was a pastor, and so he was always up front, whatever. So I spent a lot of time with my mom. But when I could get a hold of my dad. I wanted to be with my dad. As a matter of fact, until today, we're very, very, very close.
Right.
And I obviously, as we grew older, I grew very close to my mom, you know. But if I had a big trouble, which I was always in big trouble when I was growing up or whatever, I would talk to my dad about the big things. So we would sit down and talk, and I really appreciated that. And so I love this photo. It's my favorite because I'm like telling everybody, hey, I'm with daddy here, you know, and I just love this photo. And I heard you preach on the topic we're going to talk about today, and actually it was the most emotional I've ever seen you talking about daddy's little girl, because you have girls too, huh?
I am the father of two marvelous daughters. This is a photo that we took about 29, 30 years ago when we were on vacation.
Wow.
At the Grand Canyon. You
wow,
can't
you
see
look
much of the
so
canyon.
young.
I was 29 to 30 years ago. Yeah.
And your
but
kids
things have changed.
Yeah, they sure have.
The fullness of time. But both of these are daddy's girls.
Wow.
They adore their mother. Absolutely adore their mother. But these are daddy's girls, and they've always had me wrapped right around the little finger.
So they could do whatever.
Oh yeah, they sit on my lap, and I just reach for my wallet because I knew I was toast anyway. They're
How
going to get whatever
old are
they
they in
want.
that
I think
photo?
this is about 6 and 4 is where they are at this point. About 6 and 4.
And you are how many pounds? No, just kidding. No, just kidding. Isn't it something, you know, even our producer and the person that, we have two people right now behind the cameras producing and directing who have children. And when they talk about their kids, you know,
they get emotional.
Yeah. There's something about our kids.
It evokes emotions in us like nothing else.
Nothing else.
Absolutely nothing else.
Yeah.
Being a father has been the most guilt-producing thing I've ever done, and yet it's been the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And now grandparenting, though, is guilt-free, and I love it.
There you go. You just give them candy, give them back to the parents.
Right.
Yeah.
Send them back to
so
mama.
your kids now are
They're in their mid-30s. The older one is now the principal of a K-12 Christian school in Dallas, and the younger one is a counselor in private practice.
wow, isn't that something?
And they are still a delight. They live within.
They're still daddy's little girls.
Still daddy's little girls.
That's
One
never
lives
gonna
5
stop.
minutes away from me, the other 20 minutes away, but they're daddy's girls.
Well, you know, there's something about knowing yourself loved by a parent and loving a child that is so strong that God decided that that would be the main metaphor in the Bible about his love for us. You know, we have many metaphors. We have a husband with a bride. We have many other metaphors. But the father who has children that he lost and is getting back is the one metaphor that goes from Genesis to Revelation, because he lost his children. I mean, how would it have felt if you lost your children?
And I think that when we can see the love of the Father in that light, take the love that I have for these little girls, which is enormous, and put it on steroids and multiply it by 1 billion times, and I've scratched the surface of his love for me.
Wow.
And that's hard for me to get my mind around.
Yes.
That he could love me that much more than I love these little girls.
Yeah, which is, it looks impossible.
Yeah, it's
it feels
impossible
yeah.
to me. But that's how he feels about every one of our viewers today, and it's how he feels about you and me.
Wow. So today we invite you to come with us to one of the most amazing stories in the Gospel of Luke, and we're going to head to our study table. And if you're home, we tell you maybe you can grab the Bible or you can grab a paper and pen. We're going to go into one of those juxtapositions that the Gospel of Luke makes of a man and a woman. A man and a woman. Remember that I would say that this Gospel usually does that, but it's going to do it in a way that is going to it's going to get all of us in our hearts today, because we're going to discover something that Jesus said that actually changed my life, and I'm hoping that it will change yours too. And I think many of us have a wrong image of God. And that's why we do these programs. Mm-hmm. You know, I have dedicated my life in trying to give a healthy image of God to people.
The character of God is one of the most important themes of theology, and it's one of the things that I think people need more today than anything else, is to understand the character of God, to see how He views you, His feelings toward you.
Exactly.
And that has been so distorted in numerous ways.
That's it. That's the actual word. It's distorted. So when you look at God, you are thinking, hey, He's ready with a lightning, waiting for me to do something wrong, when in fact He uses the metaphor, the closest metaphor He has to use of His love for us is a father with His children.
Every emotional earthly relationship that we can think of, He's used as a metaphor.
Yeah.
The bride and the groom, the father, the brother, all of it is there.
Yes. But the father with the children
that is the one that's
is there
strongest.
From the beginning to the very end. Yeah. When we end in Revelation, He says, hey, you will be my son.
Right.
We'll finally we are going to be together, and this is never to part again.
Right.
So we're going to go to Luke chapter 8. Now, Luke is, like we said, this gospel that juxtaposes men and women. And we find a man who is a very important man. And we're going to be using PowerPoint slides that we're going to be inserting in the middle of this so that you can follow it, because Luke will use a very interesting technique that was used at the time in other writings, not just in the Bible, called intercalation, where there is a story going on, and instead of finishing that story, he intercalates another story that happens in the middle, and then he finishes the first story. But in order to do that, the two stories had to be related. And it seems impossible that the story of a man could be related to the story of a woman, because men had status in that society and women
did not.
Yeah. So we're going to find out why these two stories end up being very, very, very similar. So we're going to start with the story of the man, and his name is Jairus, and he has a little daughter, and his little daughter is in trouble. So we're going to go to chapter 8, starting on verse 40 and going to perhaps 42.
And as Jesus entered, the people welcomed Him, for they had been waiting for Him. And there came a man named Jairus, and he was an official of the synagogue. And he fell at Jesus' feet and began to implore Him to come to his house. For he had an only daughter, about 12 years old, and she was dying. But as he went, the crowds were pressing against Him.
Okay, so here we have the first part. Remember, we said that what he does, he tells you the beginning of a story, and something's going to happen that is going to interrupt that in a moment. But it's very important to understand that we are given everything about this man, because he's a man, he has status, we know what he does.
Ruler of the synagogue, so he's got wealth.
So let's look at that. First of all, his name, what's his name?
Jairus.
Second is his status. What is his role?
He's the ruler of the synagogue.
Okay, and by the way, some people say, oh, he must be one of 20 rulers. No, each synagogue had one ruler.
One ruler.
It's like the senior pastor of a church. Okay, so Jairus is the man.
Yeah, he's the guy.
Yeah, and in a small village, if you see Jairus coming, you get out of the way, because this is an important man.
He had to be a man of wealth, because very often the synagogue would meet in his home or in a building that he owned. And so this is a man of some status in the community.
Exactly. And he's acting in an unusual way for a respectable man.
He fell at the feet of Jesus. You would never do that.
You would never do that. See,
Never.
This is why it's so interesting that we have a man with status, this and that, his Jairus officer. All of a sudden we find him
humbling himself at the feet of an itinerant preacher who had been rejected by people in Jerusalem, with whom he was well connected, Jairus.
Exactly.
And yet he's bowing before this man, begging him, imploring him,
exactly,
come heal my daughter.
Yes, and so we are, before we get to verse 42, we're wondering, why is he behaving like this? And immediately you get the three reasons. He has a little girl who is an only daughter. And she is 12 years old.
12 years old.
And she is dying. So we have this man who is at the bottom, where the rubber meets the road, nothing left.
And he forgets the status, he forgets the wealth, he forgets the position and the connectedness.
All of it.
My little girl's the only thing that matters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but this little girl is kind of very lucky because she has an important daddy.
Yeah.
That is coming to speak for her to Jesus to see if he can do something.
And he's already exhausted the physicians that exist. There's no doubt about this. He's got money. He's paid for physicians.
Yes, exactly. So
nothing's
he's
happened.
now desperate. So it's very important. And now we're going to put the slide because now the transition happens. When you think that we're going to start a brand new story in the middle because you're expecting Jesus to go with Jairus to his house. He's an important man. I mean, we are supposed to go with him. And we meet this woman and this other story starts.
Verse 43.
Yes.
And a woman who had a hemorrhage for 12 years and could not be healed by anyone.
Okay, let's stop there.
Yeah.
So we started a new story, and we're showing you the slide right now. It looks like there were two separate stories, but all of a sudden we say, well, how long had this woman been sick?
Yeah, 12 years.
Oh, and this girl was
12 years old.
12 years old. So this woman has been sick as many years as this girl has been alive.
Yeah.
They're both women which would have not had a great status in the society, and they're both dying. So all of a sudden, we have the same story, except that the woman doesn't have anybody to speak.
No one speaks on her behalf. No one does. You know, with that kind of a problem, if she had been married, her husband may have rejected her by now, may have left. He could have divorced her for less problems.
Exactly.
And so we don't know, but no one is there to speak for her. She shouldn't be out in public. She shouldn't be touching anyone.
Not a dad, not a son, not a husband. Nobody's speaking for her.
She is alone and powerless.
Yes. And so she's the epitome of what Luke would call the poor. The poor is not just somebody that doesn't have money, but somebody that is destitute, has lost everything.
No resources, no one to speak for you.
And no reason for anybody. See, for example, we're going to be told here that a woman had a hemorrhage. She kept bleeding without stopping. And this was a situation that in Leviticus 15 would make a woman unclean. So not only she could not touch anyone, but nobody could touch her.
Yes,
so you couldn't even invite her for dinner.
No.
This woman has not been touched.
She was persona non grata. No one had touched her for 12 years.
For 12 years. As long as this girl has been alive, the girl of the important daddy, this woman has been the untouchable woman.
I remember a woman who told me she had moved to a new city, did not know anyone there. And I said, what's the hardest thing about being there? She said, no one touches me.
Wow.
She had not been hugged, embraced, or even touched for 6 months, and she said, I miss touch.
Human touch.
I miss touch.
Isn't it something?
And so she needed to build a network so that she would have someone who would touch her. Yeah.
So in the PowerPoint, now we're going to make this transition to the story of a woman, but we have many things in common. The number 12, the fact that they're both women, one is a young woman, one is an older woman, and the fact that they're both dying. So all of a sudden we have very many things in common. So except that this woman has no other man to speak for her.
Now, the little girl is blessed. She's a daddy's girl, and she knows that she's got him right here.
Yeah, exactly.
But this woman has no one, and she thinks she's nothing.
She's nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
So she came up behind him, verse 44, and touched the fringe of his cloak, and immediately her hemorrhage stopped.
Okay, so this is very important because the verb touch is very pivotal. We just told you that if you want to go to Leviticus 15, verses 19 to 31, you're going to see that she was untouchable and could not touch.
Could not touch.
So the verb touch would make everybody that is hearing or reading this story go, oh!
Well, yeah.
You know?
What? You touched
Yeah, she just made Jesus unclean.
Unclean.
Right?
Absolutely.
So she's expecting somebody to say something.
Yeah. But she's so desperate, she risked it.
Yes. And actually she gets immediately a miracle of healing, which will be the lesser miracle. Because everybody says, oh, and she got healed.
She's healed. Wonderful.
Yeah.
End of story.
Yeah, but the story did not end because that's not the main miracle.
No.
I love this story.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jesus
In verse
said,
45, Jesus said, who is the one who touched me?
Now, she is expecting this.
Yeah.
Because we're going to get this word touch many times because she thinks she's going to be scolded.
Yeah, she's in trouble.
Yeah.
She knows it. She just made him impure.
Who touched me? Well, everybody touched you. No, not everybody touched me. Somebody touched me in a different... So count how many times you have touched.
And while they were all denying it, Peter said, Master, people are crowding and pressing in on you. It's amazing to me that he said, who touched me? And everybody said, not me. I didn't do it. Did you do it? I don't think anybody did. Everybody touched him. Everybody. There wasn't anybody there who hadn't touched him.
Exactly. And Peter said,
Master, the people are crowding and pressing in on you. Everybody's touched you.
Yeah, exactly.
What is this about? But Jesus said, someone did touch me, for I was aware that power had gone out of me. It's a different kind of touch.
Yes. Now, did Jesus know who touched
Of course.
him? Okay. So why, I mean, this woman has been all these years going through all these things. Why didn't Jesus take her to a corner in secret and say, okay, you touched me, I know you're healed. Yeah. Why did he have to make a big public spectacle out of it?
You know, her humiliation was public. I think he wanted her restoration to be just as public.
Absolutely. He's restoring her to society.
Absolutely.
He said, hey, you can invite her for dinner from now on.
Yes.
She is cured because...
She's the child of the kingdom.
Yes.
So
please,
of Zion.
yeah, so he's restoring her publicly into society. But that's not all.
When the woman saw that she had not escaped notice, she came trembling and fell down before him and declared in the presence of all the people the reason why she had touched him and how she had been immediately healed.
This is incredible how these two stories are becoming more and more alike.
Absolutely.
Because at the beginning we only had some variables that were the same. But if you remember, he fell at Jesus' feet.
Jairus did. Now the woman does.
Now she fell at his feet. And I love that one sentence, she had not escaped notice. When she realized she not escaped notice, because this is a woman who had a PhD in escaping notice.
Absolutely. Because
she couldn't be seen,
She's
touched.
been the master of this for 12 years.
She learned to be invisible. Yeah. But she realized that she couldn't be invisible. So Jesus is restoring her publicly to society. She falls at his feet, but she's trembling. Why
frightened.
is she afraid?
She's afraid he's going to rebuke her. But Jesus now turns the story on its heels and turns her on her heels, and he does something amazing. Look at this.
Something amazing that gives me goosebumps, which, by the way, is the only time in all the 4 Gospels that Jesus
this
does
happens,
this.
right?
Yeah.
And he said to her, daughter.
Oh, stop there.
He could have called her a woman, and that would have been respectful. All sorts of things. But he called her daughter. He's on the way to heal a daddy's girl who knows she's a daddy's girl, and he's just now healed another daddy's girl who had no clue she was a daddy's girl and hadn't known it for at least 12 years.
Oh, this is so incredible, because this is the only time in all 4 Gospels that Jesus calls a woman daughter.
Daughter.
He doesn't call her any other woman daughter. It's like he's saying to her, do you think that because I'm on my way to Jairus' daughter to heal her, I don't have time for my daughter?
My little girl,
Yeah. See, the biggest miracle for you is not just that you stop bleeding. It's for you to be receiving to my kingship, because nobody came for you, but I am your daddy. You are my daughter. And that's what you need to know today.
That's what he's telling her. You are a daddy's girl. You've always been a daddy's girl, even when you thought you weren't. There are women today watching this show who I guarantee you have lost all sense of the fact that they are a daddy's girl. There are men who don't believe that they're a daddy's boy. They think they've gone too far, too much has happened to them. Women who have been the victims of sexual violence, they all feel like they are somehow broken or violated or discarded or junked in some way.
And the first thing God says to them is, you are my child.
My child.
You're my
daughter.
boy. You're my daughter. You know.
And all of your brokenness, he looks at you and he says, daughter. Daughter. He could have called you so many other things, but it's daughter that he refers to you by, son that he refers to me by.
That is the most
brokenness.
Yeah. See, and this is the real miracle. See, the other miracle happened 5 verses before.
Yeah.
This is the miracle when he says to her, daughter, and then he uses a verb that has been translated in many different ways.
Yeah.
Your faith has saved you, says the original, made you whole,
made you well,
not just healed.
Yeah.
Is the verb zoter, the savior? Not just heal, saved, made whole. Yeah. Your faith has made you whole. Now you have a new status. You can go in peace.
And it's reminiscent of the Hebrew, the shalom, all that is necessary for your best good.
Yes.
Go in, and not just the absence of conflict, but knowing you are a daddy's girl.
Exactly. You have a new identity. What she was given, the biggest miracle here, is that she has a new identity.
Exactly.
And you're in the middle of this and you forget that we were having another story of another daughter, which we now see that we're going to make another transition. But before we do, I want to do a little thing here. I don't know what it means to you if you're listening to us or viewing us, but I want to tell you what it means to me, because, you know, we all go through things and people tell you you're good for nothing because you're divorced or because of this or because of that, right? This woman had so many labels, and I was trying to say, how can I put myself, so I'm going to just put a cloak and put labels on it. This woman has wore so many labels. You know, for example, she's just destitute. So people knew that she was destitute. She didn't have anybody to actually speak for her. She had lost all her money, so she was also poor. So I'm going to put this one on. So she's walking around with these labels on. On top of that, she's sick. And not just any sickness. She is sick, bleeding, which made her unclean, untouchable. And therefore, she was rejected. You could not invite this woman to the synagogue even. So she's wearing all these labels. And I realize as I counsel young adults and other people that people wear labels. Sometimes they have labels that say on sale. And they say, I'm not worth much. Yeah. So you can have me for 20 cents. You know what I mean? Because they don't believe they're worth much. So whoever will take them, no matter how they treat them, is like, okay, at least somebody's taking me, right? Jesus comes and says, look, those labels, those are not who you are. I'm going to give you a new ID tag. And Jesus goes, look, this is the one you're going to wear from now on.
You're a daughter.
You are the daughter of the king. That's your new ID.
Which makes you a princess.
Which makes you a princess. Can you imagine what this woman was feeling all this stuff? I mean, it's hard to imagine, but I can imagine it simply because it has happened to all of us, that somebody's telling you you're worth nothing for whatever reason, you know. But if you think of your daughters, if I think of my daddy and the way he treated me, I was very blessed with my dad. And so in the middle of all of this, we get a messenger. And as you can see, we go back to the previous.
We're shocked back to the first story.
But also we need to have 3 or 4 ideas that are the same, because if not, intercalation doesn't work. So what are the ideas that are going to be the same? So we're going to read here the verse we just read and the one that comes after.
And he said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. While he was still speaking, someone came from the house of the synagogue official saying, your daughter has died. Do not trouble the teacher anymore.
So your daughter, because now we have 2 daughters. We have Jesus' daughter and we have Jairus' daughter.
Who's now dead.
And it says, your daughter has died. And Jesus now uses the same words that he just used with his daughter, now to the daddy.
But when Jesus heard this, he answered him, do not be afraid any longer, only believe, and she will be made well.
Same word. And by the way, your faith and only believe use the same word. See, in English we have faith and the verb is different, but is the same word, believe, and she will also be saved or made whole or made well. It's greater than simply be healed. She also will be made the same as my daughter was just made.
Right.
Your daughter.
Be restored and complete.
And of course, you know how the story goes. He goes to Jairus' house, and
the mourners are there. He tells them, stop weeping. She's not dead. She's just sleeping.
And he touches the untouchable.
Yes.
See, the 2 stories are so similar. The 12, the dying, the woman at Jesus' feet, and believe and made well, and both of them are untouchable.
When
and
the
Jesus
child dies, she's untouchable.
Touchable, because that would make Jesus unclean.
Unclean again. Yeah.
See, I just love that in this story, instead of the uncleanness going to Jesus, the life of Jesus goes into them.
Whenever Jesus touches someone unclean, whether it be a leper, a dead little girl, a dead son, or a woman with a, instead of making him unclean, they are suddenly made clean and well and restored and whole.
I love that. And I know that there's many people that are watching us that are wondering. Not long ago, I got something on Facebook. Somebody says, I've done terrible things in my life. Do you think I have gone too far for God to now be able to restore me into relationship with him? Yeah. And I'm going, absolutely not.
No.
His arms are long enough no matter where you've been, and you're his child.
To think that you, as a temporary speck of dust, is so powerful that you could out-sin the grace of God is the most ludicrous thing I can think of.
Wow.
He has already he saw for the potential of your brokenness, and he's made provision for this. His grace is bigger than your sin, period. End of story.
That's it. End of story. We don't need to discuss
That's
it
right.
anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know where you are. I don't know where you've been, but the message of this story is, daughter, son, you have been noticed. You have a new kinship, and you can be at peace because daddy is here. You know, I'm sure that when your kids were small, sometimes whether they were frightened by something or a storm or something, the moment you walk into the room, in the moment that daddy's here, they feel safe. They feel, okay, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that's the message Jesus wants to give this woman, this man, and us. Daddy is here, so you can be at peace.
Right.
Right? So I wish we would all learn this and not question it anymore. I mean, one of the most beautiful verses, and many of you know about heart, is 1 John chapter 3, verse 1. Behold, what manner of love the Father has given unto us, that we should be called
sons of God.
We are children of God. We're daughters. We're sons of God. And we are the apple of his eye. The way that Mike's eyes fill with tears when he talks about his daughters, and the way I felt in my daddy's arms, this is the way that God wants you to feel. Right. That you're loved and beyond words, beyond any explanation.
He's doing his best to evoke that emotion in you.
Yeah.
The emotion of tenderness and acceptance by the Father. His love for you is without measure.
Yep. Thank you for being with us and for sharing your emotions and your children with us today. And, you know, I became very touched by the topic of being God's children. And so I wrote a book called Surprised by Love. And it says The Unexpected Rescue of God's Children. And today we're going to make a free offer for you. If you download our app, Jesus 101, and where it says book offer, you put chosen. That's the title of our series. You put chosen. If you are in the United States or Canada, we're going to send you this book for free called Surprised by Love, The Unexpected Rescue of God's Children. The fact is that if you become convinced that you are a child of God, that you are a daughter, that you're a son, everything changes. You don't look at God anymore as somebody who's just waiting for you to say something wrong or do something wrong so he can just punish you. You start looking at God the way that Jesus portrayed himself in this story. Daughter, you thought you were not loved by anyone. You had nobody speaking for him. You thought that I'm on my way to the house of somebody very important to heal their daughter and I don't have time for you. But you are my daughter. We're going to be together for eternity. So at some point, we need to start believing it. And when you believe it, not only you find your self-worth, but you find the purpose for your life. Because if not, you're always wondering, what is my ID? What label am I wearing? I am the sick person, the marginalized person, the jailbird, the adulteress. Who am I? And Jesus says, no. I only see one identity. Because I died for you on the cross, this is it. Let's settle it. You're my daughter. You are my boy. You're my child. So go in peace. Daddy's here.